Hey now, hope you're doing great. Hope it's been a great weekend for you. It's been a couple of weeks since I've had a chance to do a weekly roundup, and I apologize to you regular viewers of these roundups, but sometimes the weeks just get away from me and I run out of time. Week before, busy. Last week, I had COVID. I've spent 5 years running away from COVID. I've been very lucky not to have it. You can see it in my eyes. I mean, I'm usually a little bit tired, right? But you can see and you'll hear me probably cough throughout class a little bit. I'm doing a lot better. Not really sick anymore. I'm just not back to 100%, right? I guess that's COVID. It just keeps you kind of down or keeps you just not feeling quite right for a while longer. Hmm. Then a regular plain Jane run of the mill cold. All right. Hey now, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and let's jump into the class. As far as you guys watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. Appreciate you watching these when I upload them. You guys, and there are only a few of you watching live, YouTube, go ahead and follow the Twitch stream on Twitch, twitch.com if you're not familiar with it. Twitch.com, ReisJD, ReisJD, and follow there. Make sure your notifications are turned on so you get notified when I go live. I try to do these on Sunday nights, 9 o'clock, this time 10 o'clock. It really depends on the kids, on the family, and when I can get 30 minutes or so free. Not easy. It's not always easy. I do them sometimes. I'll do some catch-ups, probably Tuesday night or Thursday night. One of those nights I need to do a reading, though. I need to do a reading of The Wind in the Willows, Chapter 4. I've had people asking for it, so I have to do that this week. That's definitely on the list of things, on the menu, you could say, of things I have to do. Tonight's class, though, all this looks good. Yep. Check and make sure these little icy vocabulary and the follow buttons work. The follow button's been slow for some lately. There it goes. All right, you all. Here we go. Again, I'm Jacob, ReisJD, Bridge Gaming, Bridge School Online, English at the ready. You can see this is where I spend my time teaching English classes. Now, I have a few different projects, a few different irons in the fire, as we say, but English at the ready, this is the this is the English program that I'm helping to build. This is what we went over, I believe it was 2 weeks ago. We talked about psychology. And instead of doing the regular roundup, I decided to give you it's basically a full class on the psychology paradigms. It's how psychology is applied in practice. Usually I just give some idioms, some phrasal verbs, and vocabulary. This time we're doing a little bit more with applied psychology. So let me take you'll see me take a number of sips of tea, I'm sure, tonight, just to keep my voice flowing. Again, COVID, and now a little, something like an upper respiratory infection at this point. At least that's how it feels. I'll say that's how it feels. All right, here we go. What are paradigms? Here I can't see my cursor. I don't know why that's not showing. No, there it is. It's super tiny. That's interesting because I have it enlarged quite a bit on the small screen, but it is what it is. What are paradigms? Paradigms. Psychology paradigms are overarching frameworks or models that guide how psychologists understand, study, and practice psychology. They offer distinct perspectives on human behavior, thought, and emotion, influencing research methods and therapeutic approaches. Different paradigms emphasize various factors that have their own unique strengths to contribute to understanding psychological phenomena. So, paradigms, you have psychological or psychology paradigms, you have education paradigms, academic paradigms, you have paradigms in the different sciences. They're frameworks and models, overarching, something that goes over or covers the topics, the frameworks or models that guide how the professionals or educators understand, study, and practice their course of study. So the first paradigm we'll talk about is behaviorism. Now remember, these are These paradigms are different ways to think about psychology. They're different approaches you might take in the way you understand or undertake treatment for something. Whether you see a clinician about a specific problem or a series of problems, the way that they will try to help you, the way that they'll respond to you will be based on one of these paradigms. And we start with the one that I believe in the most. If I were a clinician, if I were a clinical psychologist, I would focus on behaviorism or behaviorist thinking. So behaviorism focuses on observable behaviors and the ways they are learned or conditioned. It largely ignores internal states like thoughts and emotions. So we're focused on behaviors, the way behaviors are learned and conditioned. We don't pay so much attention to the internal state of being, like your thoughts, emotions, and feelings. My wife would tell you that this sounds just like me. I'm very much a behaviorist in the way I think about really the world in the end. For example, classical conditioning, Pavlov's dogs. Pavlov's experiments with dogs where they learned to associate a bell with food. When Pavlov or the researchers would ring a bell, ding, 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 the dogs would expect food. And they, through many, many, many instances of hearing a bell and receiving food, not hearing bells, not receiving food, they learned to associate the bell with food. This is classical conditioning. We do some of this in advertising. They show you the color red with a golden M in the middle. What are those? Oh, McDonald's fries. Salivating, thinking about them, right? I've been, in a way, classically conditioned to think about the red, golden M inside of it as being related to a delicious box of French fries, right? A little bit of a slant there, but it still works. Then there's operant conditioning. So operant conditioning was made famous by B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner's research on reinforcement and punishment to shape behavior, like training a rat to press a lever for food. So Pavlov's experiments, classical conditioning, had more to do with some sort of a stimulus, some sort of a stimuli that would cause a reaction. Where operant conditioning, similar but not the exact same, they reinforced and punished to shape behavior. So they would give food when the animal would do what they wanted them to do. Like you in school, when you get a good grade, they want you to keep studying the same way so you continue to get good grades, right? And there might be a punishment. Punishment would be something negative that would happen to train the creature, animal, the person to not do something, right? Think about home, your parents, right? I grew up in the 1980s. My parents still gave whoopings for sure. That was a negative reinforcement. You have positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is when you're given a cookie because you did a good job with cleaning or on your homework. Negative reinforcement is when you get a whooping. Or, if you're one of my Latin American students, you get la chancla thrown at you, right? This is how you know what you did was wrong, and the person who's trying to teach you not do it wants you to stop that behavior and not do it again, right? So classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Difference would be classical conditioning offers a stimuli to associate with something that they want you to associate it with, like ringing a bell for food, seeing a red box with a golden M and thinking about French fries. And operant conditioning is where they physically, or could be mentally, verbally, emotionally, they give you a negative reinforcement or a positive reinforcement for something they do or do not want you to do. The next paradigm is cognitive psychology, which we call cog-psych. We often call this cog-psych in the academic system. In cognitive psychology, they emphasize internal mental processes, such as perception, memory, and problem solving. This is the way you associate with and think of the things that you learn or the world around you. So it's a little more internal than behavioral psychology. So for two examples, we have information processing, or the information processing model, understanding how the brain processes information, similarly to a computer, with input, processing, and output stages. Again, cognitive psychology. This is the way that your brain interprets, perceives, understands things that are happening to you in the world we live in. Then there's cognitive behavioral therapy. We mix behaviorism and cognitive psychology through CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, CBT. It's a therapeutic approach that changes faulty thinking patterns to alter emotions and behavior. This very specifically is something I very much believe in because often it doesn't do harm, not taking a medication, and it gives you something you can learn and improve on. We watch YouTube videos all the time to learn how to be more mindful, or other videos like that. They teach you how to meditate, they teach you how to think and perceive things in a different way. This is CBT, therapeutic approach that changes faulty thinking patterns. Again, it's not saying something's wrong with you. They're just faulty thinking patterns. We all fall down the rabbit hole sometimes. Have you heard that expression? When you think about, if you remember the famous tale of, what is it, a folk tale, fable? What do they call this? Drawing a blank. This isn't the lesson tonight. Anyway, the story. Let's just call it a story. The story of Alice in Wonderland, where she chases the white rabbit down into the hole. Sometimes we fall down deep into a rabbit hole with our faulty thinking patterns. And cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you skills, learnable, coachable skills to change your thinking patterns that alter your emotions, your behaviors, subsequence. So again, this is what I like. You talk to me about way that I learn to behave, way I try, I'm not perfect at it, way I try to teach kids to behave. There's a lot of CBT. I've read a lot of CBT. And again, I believe in it. It's paradigms. You can choose what works for you. There's not a right one or a wrong one necessarily. There may be a best one for a situation, but often it's more, how would you apply it and why would you apply it? Answering those questions helps you choose the paradigm that's best for the situation. And this is what a clinical psychologist, psychiatrist, it's the other psychologist, clinical psychologist, psychotherapist. This is what they're trained to do, is choose the right paradigm to fit the problem. Some of them do this very well, and some of them, let's just say they suck at doing it because they have one model and they say, this is the best paradigm, this is the only way to do it. Again, I'm not saying CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is the best for everybody. It works great for me. I hope it works well for my kids because I can help them with it. I understand it very well. But the truth is, yes. So I mentioned psychotherapists. You have psychoanalytic or psychodynamic paradigm. This focuses on unconscious processes and how early life experiences shape behavior and personality. This is where a lot of people focus. When you talk to people who are not clinical psychologists or who do not have a lot of academic experience with psychology, they will talk about, oh, that's that weird psychoanalytic mess. That's psychotherapy. No, and it's not all, it is a little weird. I'll come out and say it. It can be a little weird sometimes because it's not something that's easy to dig into or experience because we're talking about the unconscious. The unconscious. This is the part of your mind. You have your conscious part of you that's aware of things. You have your subconscious, which is like that little gut feeling that talks to you, your angel and devil on your shoulder that says, hey, do good. Hey, do this. It's bad. Let's be bad today, right? This is your subconscious. And you get that gut feeling, right? You make a decision based on a gut feeling. That's your subconscious at work. Your enteric nervous system largely has to do with your subconscious. That's enteric. Enteric. Nervous system, which some people will call the ENT or ENS, excuse me. ENT is ears, nose, and throat doctor. ENS. I said ENT because, hey, I had COVID last week. I call it brain fog. Anytime I make a mistake this week, I've said brain fog. Leave me alone. But the psychodynamic paradigm, or psycho, I will probably say psychodynamic because this is the one I'm used to saying from university years ago. This is where you talk about Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is very famous for psychoanalysis, psychodynamics. Freud's theory of psychosexual development proposes that early childhood stages influence personality development. This is kind of weird. This is very academic. If you haven't been to university, you may have heard this and just completely ignored it. If you've been through university and taken an intro to psychology class, you have talked about this ad nauseum. I swear that basic psychology classes in university focus so much on Freud's theory of psychosexual development that most people who only take those classes come away thinking that this is all there is to psychology. And it's not. Again, you've seen some other paradigms already, behaviorism or behaviorist paradigms, cognitive analytical paradigms. Psychoanalytic is just another paradigm. Defense mechanisms. This is a big take home, I think, from psychoanalytic theory. Defense mechanisms are concepts like repression, denial, and projection, where the mind defends itself against uncomfortable thoughts or feelings. Concepts like repression, repressed memories, something happened to you as a child, which does lean into Freud's theory as a foundation of this. Repression, you remember something happened, maybe you don't remember exactly what it was, maybe when something happens that's similar to it, you recoil and you don't want to be around a certain person or a certain environment because it reminds you of something. I mean, we go to church on Sunday, I'll be honest with you. And I have a lot of friends who something negative happened to them at church, and some of them don't remember. Sometimes this was something really bad, but other times it's just someone said something that this has happened to me too. Someone you really trust is very critical of you for a decision you make or for the way you live life or whatever it would be. And instead of being loving, caring, and communal, they are judging, pointing their finger at you, saying, evil or whatever it would be. This sort of thing happens to a lot of people. These repressed memories make people really uneasy and they don't want to go back and be part of that community again. Makes sense. Same thing could happen in school. Same thing could happen in their families. Denial. This didn't happen. It did happen. No, I don't remember it. It didn't happen. Some people block things out, they repress the memory, and they deny it ever happened. And then some people even who both repress and deny that something happens, some of them will also project these situations onto other people. Yeah, every group is like this. Every person who looks this way will treat me like this. Everybody who goes to a restaurant will be a jerk to the server. I worked as a server for a little while. A lot of us did. A lot of my peers in university did. And you project those feelings and memories onto other people and situations. And this is something where cognitive behavioral therapy, I believe, can help you to become aware. And even if you don't, I've never been to a psychologist myself. I'm not against it. I've just never been to one. But I have applied CBT techniques. You can look online and find a lot of good information. Look at YouTube, watch this lesson. Maybe you'll get a little bit of good advice too. But a lot of people project what they think is going to happen, and they're projecting their feelings and emotions onto someone else in another situation that may be completely different than the one that led them to believe or feel as they feel. Hopefully this makes sense to you. I know these are a lot of words, and I am speaking a little quickly about this, but trying to glaze over it. It's kind of go over the top like a glazed donut, right? And putting a little icing on it, making it delicious. And I'm going to feed it to you here through the camera. Again, let's take a second. If you're not following, you guys are hanging out in the chat. Thank you for being here. Thanks for lurking. Just drop a little follow. Please do. Please click that follow. Please join the group. We'll talk about the English at the Ready Club at the end. think that's good. So humanistic psychology is another paradigm. This centers on individual potential, self-actualization, and the belief that humans are inherently good and motivated by personal growth. Sounds like modern discussion about human development, doesn't it? Humanistic psychology. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, theory that explains human motivation through a five-tier model of needs from psychological or physiological is this word, to self-actualization. So the bottom of the pyramid, you have the basic needs. You have shelter. You have food. These things are on the bottom. You need some place to survive, right? And then at the very top is self-actualization. Once all the other physical and emotional needs are met, you can become a self-actualized person who puts their energy out into the world, creates goodness for other people, right? When you're self-actualized, you know who you are, know what you want to do. Now, it may not be like you know what you're doing and you're always making the right choices, but you know why you're making the next choice you're making. You make it, and if it's the wrong choice, well, you do something else and make a better choice, right? Self-actualized people move forward. When you're not self-actualized, you'll often hit a trough, or you'll plateau. Let's say you're gaining, getting better, improving, oof, and then you plateau. Okay, stuck here. Why am I stuck here? If you're self-actualized, you'll figure that out, and you'll just keep moving. But if your other needs aren't met, right? Maybe you have your basic needs. Maybe you have your, let's say you have your food, you have your shelter, you're all right. You have an okay job, so you have enough money to provide for yourself, but you have no friends. You have no social involvement. You're plateauing because something's missing, right? Social involvement. But once you get that, oh, okay. Hey, I'm feeling better. And we start moving forward on the incline once again. Client-centered therapy. Carl Rogers' approach that emphasizes empathy, genuineness, unconditional positive regard in therapy. There are a lot of client-centered therapists out there. Some people that I know who are in the, we'll say in the profession, they don't prefer client-centered therapy as a paradigm alone, because sometimes this is focused on who's paying you the money, right? As long as you keep that client happy, they keep paying you, so they become a cash cow. So you give them what they need or what you think they need, and they just continue being a client, right? Some of my friends, again, who work as psychologists, who work in as clinical psychologists, who work in practice, they say that too much of this can be a negative thing, because sometimes people need to be told that they are engaging in some cycle that is not helping them out. Right? But then again, your client-centered therapy will say, no, therapists will say, no, you're improving. This week is better than last week. Next week's going to be better than this week. Just keep coming. We'll keep talking. So there's nothing really wrong with that. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. And there are a lot of people who go and seek treatment who need to hear reinforcement. They need to hear positive affirmations. Positive affirmations, check out YouTube. If you need positive affirmations, there are some really great videos on YouTube of people just giving constant affirmation. And I'll tell you what, they're fantastic. When you're having a bad day, pop open YouTube and pull up a series on positive affirmations, and you will find some benefit. It will benefit you. Just listen to it while you clean house or work or do something else. And just hearing positive things goes a long way. So I'm not saying anything's wrong with client therapy. I'm just saying that in practice, there's some question as to whether this is the only paradigm that matters or not. Some clinicians believe client-centered therapy, just like client-centered or student-centered teaching, is the only way. Sometimes you need to use another paradigm, use another framework, and build your structure out so you have a more holistic approach. This is what I think in particular about client-centered therapy. But humanistic psychology, individuals, self-actualization, the belief that humans are inherently good, it sounds very Western, doesn't it? It sounds very American. It's not just American, but It sounds very Western idealist, doesn't it? Think about that. Think about different forms of government, different cultures around the world, and where this would fit in best, where it might not. Then we have biopsych, biological psychology. Let me not drink my tea bag. Biopsych. I like this a lot too. Biopsych was basically, if I could have built my own major, we didn't have a biopsychology major at UNC Wilmington back in the day. But if I could have coined my major as a biopsych major, I would have. I had a lot of bio classes and a lot of psych classes in undergrad. This explores the biological underpinnings of behavior, such as genetics, brain structures, and neurochemistry. My opinion, this is inseparable from the study of psychology in general and the practice of psychology. We know that our processes, our physiological processes in our brain, affect our mood, affect our state of being, affect our ability to cope with changes in our environment. And some people do things or adapt faster and better than others. We know this. This is absolutely just a truth. For example, neurotransmitter studies. Research on how chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, some feel-good chemicals, influence mood and behavior. Genetic studies. Twin studies investigating the heritability of traits like intelligence or predisposition to mental illness. These are always very interesting. Taking twins who, again, are genetically similar or genetically possibly about the same, and then seeing how gene expression works differently between them. Sometimes expression is largely the same. Sometimes it can be vastly different, right? Some twins have physiological expressions where they look the same. Some twins have similar levels of intelligence. Some twins are vastly different. Some twins are excellent at sports. Sometimes you have a twin who's great at sports is terrible, and one who has no coordination whatsoever. What's with that? They have the same genetic predisposition, but the expression might be different. Same thing for any psychological disorder. If you think about something like Tourette's, why does one twin have Tourette's and the other does not? So biological psychology, biopsych. This is a whole, I could give a whole separate class on this. We might one day in the future, we'll see. But there's a lot to talk about here. Biopsych. Evolutionary psychology examines physiological traits as evolved adaptations. Heard me say this word already during this class, shaped by natural selection. So this again goes back to Darwin's theory of evolution. And it's not just physiological, or actually it's not physiological at all, aside from the brain traits, the brain physiology. It's your psychological traits, your emotional traits, your emotional awareness, your emotional, what's the word I want to use? Your emotional regulation. All of these could be products of evolution. We've evolved to act and react a certain way. And based on our parents' genetics, we take on some of their traits. Some of us are better at regulating our feelings, thoughts, and emotions than others. For example, mate selection, theories about how evolutionary pressures influence preferences for certain traits in partners. Again, are we purely genetically driven when we find our mate? There are some studies that say we smell them, right? Smell, you know, because we all do have pheromones, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you smell it or not. Maybe this is true and we sniff out our mate. No. But maybe we find certain things attractive, right? Maybe our friends find something else totally different. That was poorly said. Maybe our friends find other traits more attractive than the traits we find attractive. And my buddy's got this really ugly girlfriend. How'd that work out? He thinks she's beautiful, and to him, she is beautiful. So we have different perceptions of beauty, different perceptions of positive and negative traits as well. I can burp the ABC. One of my daughters thinks it's hilarious. The other thinks it's disgusting. They both think it's disgusting. But some of these traits could be genetic. They could be inherited. Fear responses. Understanding phobias as evolved responses to threats faced by ancestors, like fear of snakes or heights. Maybe we had some ancestors who lived around a bunch of snakes. They lived, I did, sure. I was born in Texas. Oh, scorpions in your shoes, or, out in the backyard, out in the garage or something. Mountains of North Carolina, snakes definitely. We had rattlesnakes and we had copperheads and lots of snakes. See, worming around our mountain area. Um, So maybe those of us who grew up in these certain regions, we have a certain fear of a certain animal that is more prominent in our region because one of our ancestors had a really horrible experience with it, and they've passed that. You can call it a genetic memory. They passed that genetic memory down throughout the generations of the family. You don't know why you're afraid of this thing, but you are. Maybe you're not even really afraid of it, but you want to run away. Your body is afraid of it. Stupid. It's not dangerous. It's over there. I want to get away. Evolutionary psychology is really interesting to me as well. Again, just the fact that we can pass down is so interesting. Social psychology. This paradigm focuses on how individuals' thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by social contexts and interactions. So these include things like conformity studies, experiments like Ash's line experiment, which demonstrated how people conform to group pressures, social identity theory, the idea that people's self-concept is partly derived from their group memberships, influencing in-group favoritism and out-group bias. So when we talk about social psychology, we talk about our social makeup, how we conform to our societal norms, how we conform to what's right, what's wrong, why we believe what's right and what's wrong is wrong. And then our social identity. Who are we? What is our identity, our concept of ourselves based on our country, our culture, our race, our ethnicity, our family history, the places we've lived? Social identity theory. I lived in China for 2.5 years. I sometimes think about things very differently from the way Americans think. I know that 2.5 years isn't that long, but the context that I lived in and the fact that I essentially immigrated there in the end and I had to deal with every factor of life living in China had a huge impact, a profound impact on me that I still feel today. I haven't been to China since 2019, just before COVID. So it's been 5 years, almost for about 11 months. I think I'm at 11, 10 months. Next month will be 11. Then October will be 12. Yeah, because I was there doing Mid-Autumn Festival. Anyway, it's hard to believe it's been that long thinking about this right now. But this is something I think about. I wonder if I've passed down some of my traumas or genetic memories to daughter Lily. It would be interesting to see her perception of China, Chinese people, Chinese things. Is she going to love it? Or is there some trauma that I passed down genetically to her? I have no idea. It'll be interesting to see. But again, this is the brunt here of my master's thesis research, social identity theory. I ask questions in China of different ethnic groups. There are 56 cultural flowers. If you include Han Chinese, that's 57. But 56 cultural flowers, 56 minority ethnic groups are nationally recognized in China. And I talked to a lot of them. Not all 56, but upwards of 50, right? So 52-ish, probably. And had them answer simple questionnaires, try to learn what they think of themselves and how they fit the Chinese society as it's growing, changing, and evolving. Because Chinese society is not Chinese society during the Great Leap Forward, the Great Cultural Revolution, Great Leap Forward. It's not the same as it was with Deng Xiaoping's opening of China, with Zhou Enlai's ping pong diplomacy, with President Nixon and what was it? Send correctly was it? May have been. Don't quote me on that name. I have forgotten, but I remember the Chinese names. This is My wife knows this. I know more about Chinese politics and Chinese politically famous figures than I do American politically. It's crazy. Um, but again, this research I did, social identity theory was a big founding construct, big founding paradigm for my research. Cultural psychology. Again, these all relate a little bit. This studies how cultural contexts influence behavior, mental processes. Now, that would be an interesting question for when I lived in China. I grew up in the United States. Living in China, different than living in the United States. So, how did my cultural upbringing clash with my cultural reality? Because I was living in China, that was my cultural reality. This is cultural psychology. Individualism versus collectivism. Research comparing cultures that prioritize individual goals, for example, the United States, versus those emphasizing group goals, for example, Japan, or China for that matter. Then there's cultural relativity, understanding how different cultural norms and values affect behaviors and attitudes, like approaches to parenting or mental health. Again, all of these aspects of culture are cultural psychology. The way that you interact in your society, the influences from that society on your choices, your behavior, your perceptions, all of these relate to cultural psychology. And then there's developmental psychology. This investigates how people change and grow throughout their lifespan. So, not evolutionary psychology, but developmental psychology, how you change and grow throughout your lifespan from infancy to old age. From infancy to old age. I can tell my pronunciation slipping a little bit as my voice begins to get more and more tired. COVID. For example, here we have Piaget's stages of cognitive development. This describes how children's thinking evolves through specific stages. Then we have attachment theory, researched by John Bowlby. I did say that right. For a moment, I thought I didn't. John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth on how early relationships with caregivers shape future social and emotional development. We had a big conversation this morning about fostering children and adoption and how important in the Washington, D.C. metro area it is that people are open and willing to take on foster children. We live in an area where there are a lot of children in need. And these attachments, these relationships with caregivers that they form in their early childhood do a lot as far as shaping their future success rates. Let's call it. Let's just lump it all together and say their future success rates. People, young men who grow up in a household without a father present, or a father who is negative influence on them, somewhere like 80% of them end up in jail. Amazing. It's a huge number. That's huge. Imagine that. Just think about that. 80%. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 children who grow up in a home with a father who's not present, or father who is a negative influence, or a father they're scared of, will end up in prison. Isn't that amazing? I wish I had these stats directly in front of me now, but somewhere around 80. And that blew my mind when I heard that this morning. Shows how important developmental psychology just emphasizes the importance of children's upbringing in their path successful. I might talk about this one again in a future lesson. I do have a lot more I want to say, but I'm trying to be somewhat brief because this lesson is beginning to extend a little past the time that I planned for it. Positive psychology. This focuses on strengths, virtues, and factors that contribute to human flourishing and well-being. So positive psychology helps you move forward, helps you work on your well-being, improving yourself and improving your mind, your mentality, and the way you act and react to the world around you. For example, gratitude interventions. This sounds like meditation, doesn't it? A lot of this is going to sound like something you would hear at a meditation camp. Gratitude interventions. Exercises that encourage individuals to focus on what they are thankful for, which has been shown to increase well-being. Flow. I like flow. Flow is a state of complete immersion and engagement in activities, leading to greater satisfaction and productivity. That's how I give these video lessons. When I'm doing these, I enter a flow state. How I can talk about things, different angles, and have a basically have a conversation with myself on camera for you to watch. It's a flow experience. When I do any video editing, I like flow experiences because I have greater satisfaction, greater productivity, and I'm completely immersed in what I'm working on. Thoughts flow very freely and completely. When I break that flow, I lose my train of thought often. But gratitude interventions, again, there you can watch YouTube and see how graciousness, being grateful for things, can change people's mindsets. If you need a good gratitude meditation, I'll drop a link on the YouTube later of a friend of mine who's one of my former students from Russia who does some gratitude intervention type meditation on YouTube, and they're pretty good. They're fantastic. You can also listen to another non-native speaker speaking English in gratitude. All right. Oh, this segment to delete, but that's okay. What I'd like you to do for your homework, you could say, on the YouTube comments here on Twitch, do go to YouTube for this. I'll post the video sometime tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll see, soon. But on YouTube, remember each of these paradigms. You can screenshot this or write this list down. Behaviorism, cognitive psychology, psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, humanistic psychology, biological psychology, evolutionary psychology, social psychology, cultural psychology, developmental psychology, positive psychology, and try to answer these questions in the YouTube comment section. I'll respond to you once I've read your answers. Which of these psychology paradigms do you find most important to research, study, and understand? Which can be useful in day-to-day life? Do you find any of these useless and a waste of time and resources? If you were to become a psychologist, which paradigm would you follow? Why? You may choose to mix and... All right, everybody. That's it. We did it. This was an exceptionally long weekly roundup, but it's one that I saved until I knew I could do, or at least felt like I could do it well, because it's a topic I really enjoy. It is what I studied in undergrad. It's a large part of my master's degree. A large part of my education in general has been psychology paradigms, everything from social psychology, cultural psychology, down to cognitive psychology, or CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, behavioral psychology. Think about these. Which of these paradigms do you think are the most useful? I'd be really interested to hear or to read your thoughts. If you are looking for consistent, longer-term English lessons, please check us out at English at the Ready. We are selling course modules. You can purchase a few course modules if you'd like, and that supports us as we grow. If you want lessons on a weekly basis and access to masterclasses and our entire video library, you can check out English at the Ready in our club membership. We have a club level membership, it's a monthly membership, and you will get one English class, group class per week, and then you get a master class every week, which is a larger group class. And then you also get 2 video lessons posted every week and access to our library of video lessons that extends 2 lessons a week from this week all the way back to, I believe, October that week. Well, September, I think. September 2020. So just about a year's worth, definitely over 100 lessons at this point that you would have access to. And you have access to Kajabi communities where you can find myself and my colleagues to answer your questions. We're always available for answering questions. It may take us a little while to get back, but we always answer them. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please, English at the Ready, englishattheready.com. Don't forget to check us out and keep following here on Twitch. Check out the Discord. You can always find me, contact me through my Discord channel or this gaming English stream here. Instagram, I don't use it as much as I should. I still need to get to work using it more. YouTube, though, at BSO, at Bridge School Online, at BSO underscore RiceJD. You can find more videos, more of these roundups there. You can find some more videos that I've created, some things from already that we've released for free for your viewing pleasure. I think that's it. I'm out of energy, you all. Take care. It's Sunday night. I'll see you again probably Tuesday night with a reading. That's what I expect. We'll do another live camp fireside reading. Then I am rest. Cross your fingers. Last night of that post-COVID congestion, I'll be back to normal energy level too. Take care, everyone. Good to see you. Good night. Bye-bye.